What if Jesus met Elon Musk? In the arid expanse of Texas, under a sky so vast it seems to press down on the earth, stands a monument to human will. It is not a temple of stone or a cathedral of glass, but a tower of stainless steel pointing defiantly toward the stars. This is Star Base, the genesis of a new exodus. Here, amid the hum of machinery and the dust of ambition, a man looks up at his creation. He is the visionary, the engineer, the techno-prophet of our age. He sees not just a rocket, but an ark designed to carry the seed of human consciousness away from the frailties of this world. A modern-day Babel, built not to challenge God, but to escape his seemingly indifferent universe. The man, Elon Musk, is consumed by a singular gospel, salvation through engineering. He has preached it to the world, and millions have become his disciples. His creed is etched into the very metal of the ship before him, the fervent belief that humanity's destiny is not here on this fragile blue marble, but out there among the silent barren worlds. He declared that he will make humanity a multiplanetary species, a promise that sounds less like an exploration and more like a desperate escape plan. He sees mortality as a design flaw to be corrected, extinction as a data point to be avoided, and space as the ultimate hard drive to back up our existence. Then a shift. It is not a sound or a movement, but a change in the very quality of the air. A silence descends that is deeper than the absence of noise. Standing a short distance away, unnoticed by the frantic engineers and buzzing drones, is another figure. He wears no suit, carries no credentials. It is Jesus. His presence does not condemn the towering machine, it reframes it. Suddenly, the symbol of human achievement feels fragile, almost tragic. The deafening ambition that fills this place is met with a quiet that exposes its hollow core, revealing the deep, primal fear that truly fuels the engine of progress. The visionary feels an unexplainable disturbance, a dissonant frequency in his world of logic and code. He does not see the Nazarene, not yet, but he feels his own certainty begin to waver like a heat haze on the horizon. The grand mission to conquer the stars is suddenly confronted by a silent, invisible question. What if you are building a kingdom in the wrong direction? The man of science, who seeks to escape the world, is now in the unnerving presence of the one who entered it to save it. A battle has begun, not for the heavens, but for the soul of the man who dares to claim them. If this encounter already makes you think, then subscribe now to this channel, because here the power of heaven confronts the thrones of earth. The man of science stands as a high priest before his altar of steel. His conviction is a cold, hard fire, forged in the crucible of logic and existential dread. He believes consciousness is a fleeting candle in an infinite dark wind, and his sacred calling is to shield that flame. He preaches a gospel of survival, a creed that sees humanity not as children of God, but as a precious data set on the verge of corruption. His work is not merely business or exploration, it is a holy war against the void, against the cosmic indifference that threatens to erase our brief, miraculous spark of awareness. He is a shepherd, but his flock is the human genome. His sermons are delivered in press conferences and social media decrees. He has declared with the certainty of a prophet that he will make humanity a multiplanetary species. This is not a suggestion, it is a commandment for the modern age. It is a promise of a new exodus, led not by a humble servant of God, but by a titan of industry who believes the promised land can be terraformed into existence. His authority is built on the power to bend metal and manipulate capital, to turn human ambition into tangible escape routes from the planet that birthed them. He offers a kingdom, but it is a kingdom of this world, built entirely by human hands. His ultimate personal desire is a reflection of this grand vision. He has stated he wishes to die on Mars, just not on impact. This is the final word in his gospel of control. to master not only life, but the very terms of his own death. It is a profound rejection of the earthly cycle, of surrendering to the soil that made him. He seeks an end that is a monument to his journey, a final data point in a life lived in defiance of natural limits. In the silent presence of the Nazarene, this ambition is stripped bare, standing in stark contrast to the one who embraced a messy and excruciating death, surrendering not to a controlled landing, but to a divine plan. While the visionary's mind charts courses to other worlds, the stillness of Jesus presents a different map. It is a map to an inner kingdom, one that cannot be reached by rockets or colonized by human will. This kingdom is not of this world, its power found not in technological supremacy, but in radical humility. Its thrones are not occupied by the brilliant and the powerful, but by the servants, the meek, the poor in spirit. The towering Starship, a symbol of man's reach for the heavens, is silently dwarfed by the presence of the one who taught that the way up is down, that true greatness is found not in escaping the world, but in kneeling to wash its feet. The clash is absolute, though no word is spoken. The techno-prophet spends his life storing up humanity's most precious treasure, its consciousness, on a new celestial hard drive. But the Spirit of Christ whispers an ancient truth across the dusty plain. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where rust and moth destroy. The entire grand enterprise, the steel ark, the Martian dream, is revealed for what it is. The most sophisticated barn ever built to store earthly riches, while the soul inside remains hungry. He is trying to save the body, having forgotten the spirit it was meant to house. Comment here. What would you say if you were standing before Jesus? The silence radiating from the Nazarene is not empty. It is a presence, a weight that presses down on the visionary's ego. The man of science who can command the attention of nations with a single post feels his own internal monologue stutter and fail. His mind, a fortress of logic and data, is breached by a feeling he cannot compute. There is an overwhelming urge to speak, to defend the steel monument behind him, to explain the existential equations that justify this grand exodus. But the words die in his throat, turning to ash. His certainty, once as solid as the rocket's alloy, now feels like a fragile shield against an inexorable, silent light. His entire philosophy is built on the premise of engineering a better future, of forcing a path to survival. He is the architect of a new covenant, one where humanity saves itself. But the stillness of Jesus offers a devastating rebuttal, a truth that echoes across the dusty field without a single word being spoken. My kingdom is not of this world. In that silent declaration, the Starship is no longer a symbol of hope. It is revealed as a magnificent tombstone for a species running from its own shadow, an ark built to escape a flood of fear, not water. It is a kingdom of this world, built with the world's tools and therefore subject to the world's decay. The tension becomes an almost physical force. The techno-prophet, a master of controlling his environment, is now in the presence of a variable that defies his every tool of measurement and manipulation. He is standing between two opposing realities. Behind him, a kingdom of steel, ambition, and human will, reaching defiantly for the heavens. Before him, an invisible kingdom of grace, humility, and divine surrender that already owns them. The ground beneath his feet feels less solid, as if the very foundations of his reality are being shaken apart by a power he can neither see nor comprehend. The silence is no longer passive, it is an active force dismantling his world. If this spiritual battle is resonating with you, share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because in this quiet, a question forms in the air, a scripture that cuts deeper than any criticism. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul, to gain Mars, to conquer another planet, to ensure the survival of the human genome, What is the value of it all if the essence of humanity is lost in the process? He has spent his life building a lifeboat for the body, a cosmic hard drive for consciousness, while the spirit within is left to starve, forgotten on the shore. He is saving the container, but has forgotten the treasure it was meant to hold. The judgment is complete, and it is not one of condemnation, but of unbearable clarity. The visionary is not damned, he is simply and utterly seen. His grand mission, his noble justifications, his world-saving rhetoric, all are stripped away like layers of paint, revealing the raw primal fear of oblivion at the core. He is not a god building a new Eden. He is a man, terrified of the dark, building the most expensive lamp in history. The silence of Jesus does not need to speak a verdict. The silence is the verdict. And in the heart of the man who wants to conquer the stars, it rings louder than any rocket engine ever could. The presence of Jesus functions not as a judge, but as a perfect, unflinching mirror. In the quiet gaze of the Nazarene, the techno-prophet does not see condemnation or anger. He sees himself, not the icon, not the visionary, not the CEO, but the raw, unedited man beneath the titles. For the first time, his own reflection is cast back at him, stripped of the armor of wealth and the shield of public opinion. An internal monologue, a lifetime of justifications, rises to his defense. He is not doing this for glory, he tells himself. He is carrying the burden of humanity's future, a weight that lesser minds cannot comprehend. It is not pride, it is responsibility. This internal defense crumbles against an ancient echo. The spirit of the Nazarene brings to mind not a scripture, but a feeling, a memory of a story baked into the human soul. Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens so that we may make a name for ourselves. The words are not spoken, but they hang in the air, a perfect description of the steel monument behind him. He recoils internally. No, this is different. This is not about making a name. It is about preserving the light of consciousness. But the spiritual mirror is relentless, revealing the thread of ego woven so deeply into the fabric of salvation that the two have become inseparable. He doubles down on his conviction, his mind racing to reinforce the walls of his worldview. The world is soft, bound by sentiment and outdated ethics. It needs a leader who operates on the cold, hard logic of survival. He is that leader. The world demands this kind of decisive, unsentimental guidance. His acquisitions, his firings, his relentless pace, they are not acts of ego, but necessary sacrifices for a goal too large for the common person to grasp. He is not a king. He is a tool of evolution, a shepherd pushing the flock away from a guaranteed extinction, but the silence before him offers no applause, no validation. It simply holds the space, allowing his justifications to sound increasingly hollow. The mirror then turns inward, away from the grand mission and toward the man. It reflects the frantic energy, the impulsive decrees, the public battles fought with the ferocity of a cornered animal. He sees a man who seeks to build a new world, governed by physics and reason, yet whose own life is a testament to chaos and emotional volatility. He preaches a gospel of a controlled, engineered future, but his own inner world is an unpredictable storm. The visionary who wants to colonize the cosmos has failed to find peace in his own heart. The grand architect of tomorrow's civilization is a king whose own inner kingdom is in a state of civil war. Finally, the polished steel of his identity begins to crack. The visionary sees the fear that has fueled him his entire life, the terror of insignificance, the horror of oblivion. His dream to die on Mars is no longer a hero's final chapter, but the ultimate escape plan, a desperate flight from an earthly grave, from the humility of returning to the dust. The mirror forces him to see that the entire grand project, this magnificent arc of survival, is also the most elaborate tombstone ever conceived to cheat death. He is building a new world because he is terrified of leaving this one. And you? Would you have the courage to look inside if you were facing Jesus? Comment below. The climax is not a storm of fire or a clash of armies. It is a profound and terrible silence. The pressure radiating from the Nazarene becomes an active, crushing force, collapsing the walls of logic the visionary has built around his heart. Internally, he screams his justifications. The world is weak, sentimental, and doomed by its own inaction. It needs a leader who is not afraid to break things, to move fast, to make the hard choices that history will later vindicate. He is not a tyrant, he is a shepherd, forcing the flock toward the only ark that can save them from the coming flood of cosmic oblivion. He is not building a monument to himself, but a lifeboat for everyone. His internal defense, so powerful and convincing in boardrooms and on public stages, shatters against a truth that rises unbidden from the dust. It is not spoken, but it is absolute. My kingdom is not of this world. This one silent thought reframes his entire existence. The stainless steel tower behind him is no longer an ark of salvation, but the ultimate expression of a worldly kingdom. It is a domain built of metal, fire, and human ambition, destined to rust and decay like all earthly things. He is building a new world with the old world's tools, trying to escape a physical grave while digging a spiritual one for an entire species. The mirror of Christ's presence forces him to see the data points of his own life. The impulsive firings, the public mockery of his critics, the relentless pursuit of control over every conversation. He had always filed these under the cost of genius, the necessary collateral damage of progress. But now they are not seen as acts of a strong leader, but as the frantic, desperate moves of a man terrified of irrelevance. He sees a chasm between the ordered, logical utopia he preaches and the chaotic, volatile kingdom of his own heart. The architect who designs cities for a new planet cannot bring peace to the landscape of his own soul. Every public pronouncement, every witty retort, every grand declaration is now revealed for what it is, another layer on an elaborate suit of armor. It is a defense mechanism designed to keep the world at a safe distance, to prevent anyone from seeing the core algorithm that truly runs his life, a paralyzing fear of oblivion. He built a global communication platform, but struggles to connect with his own spirit. He launches rockets to escape the Earth's gravity, but remains crushed by the weight of his own mortality. He is a king who rules an empire of innovation, but is a refugee in his own inner world, constantly running from the silence. The final illusion to fall is the most precious. His ambition to die on Mars is stripped of its heroic veneer and revealed as the ultimate act of escape. It is not a noble end, but a final, desperate attempt to cheat the humble, universal fate of returning to the dust. It is the ego's last stand against the great equalizer. He is not trying to save humanity from extinction, but to save Elon Musk from an ordinary death. The entire Martian project, the grand vision of a multi-planetary species, is revealed to be the most elaborate tombstone ever conceived. And you? Would you have the courage to look inside if you were facing Jesus? Comment below. The encounter ends not with a sound, but with the return of noise. The hum of machines, the distant shouts of engineers, the Texas wind, it all rushes back into the void left by the Nazarene's departure. The visionary is alone again, but the solitude is different. It is no longer the proud isolation of a leader, but the chilling loneliness of a man who has been seen. He turns to his great machine, the stainless steel monument to his will, trying to see it as he did before. He wants to see an ark of salvation, a beacon of hope. Instead, he sees a magnificent hollow shell, a desperate attempt to outrun a truth that does not travel through space, but through the soul. He tries to rebuild the walls in his mind, to dismiss the experience as a trick of the light, a momentary lapse in his otherwise impenetrable logic. The world requires this, he tells himself. It requires a leader who is not bound by sentiment, who operates on the cold calculus of survival. He is not a king drunk on power. He is a reluctant general in a war against cosmic oblivion, and history will absolve him of the small cruelties committed in the name of a greater good. But a whisper of an ancient law echoes in the new silence of his heart. To whom much is given, from him much will be required. The weight of that unseen accountability is heavier than any rocket. His memory, once a curated library of triumphs, becomes a traitor. It dredges up moments he had long since archived as collateral damage, the public mockery of a critic celebrated by his followers, the impulsive firing of a loyal engineer over a single disagreement, the promises of a free and open platform, later discarded for profit and control. He had always justified these as the necessary, unsentimental decisions of a wartime CEO. But in the afterglow of that holy silence, they are reframed. They are not the actions of a savior. They are the insecure tantrums of a man terrified of being questioned, of losing control for even a second. The great hypocrisy is now illuminated, burning like a brand on his consciousness. He who speaks of elevating human consciousness has so often trampled on human dignity. He who dreams of building a new civilization on another world has fostered a culture of fear and volatility in his own companies. He is the architect of a future utopia who cannot find peace within the borders of his own skin. The chasm between the grand, benevolent vision he sells to the world and the chaotic, wounded ego that drives him is now a canyon he can no longer ignore. He sought to save humanity, but forgot to be a good man. He is left standing in the dust, the master of a global empire, yet a refugee in his own soul. The ironclad certainty that fueled his every action has been replaced by a single terrifying question. The rocket can still fly, the mission can still proceed, but he knows now that even if he reaches Mars, he cannot escape the man who will step out onto its red soil. The seed of divine truth has been planted in the most fortified ground on earth, the heart of a man who thought he was a god. And you? Would you have the courage to look inside if you were facing Jesus? Comment here below. The encounter ends not with a sound, but with the return of noise, the hum of machines, the distant shouts of engineers, the Texas wind. It all rushes back into the void left by the Nazarene's departure. The visionary is alone again, but the solitude is different. It is no longer the proud isolation of a leader, but the chilling loneliness of a man who has been seen. He turns to his great machine, the stainless steel monument to his will, trying to see it as he did before. He wants to see an ark of salvation, a beacon of hope. Instead, he sees a magnificent hollow shell, a desperate attempt to outrun a truth that does not travel through space, but through the soul. He tries to rebuild the walls in his mind, to dismiss the experience as a trick of the light, a momentary lapse in his otherwise impenetrable logic. The world requires this, he tells himself. It requires a leader who is not bound by sentiment, who operates on the cold calculus of survival. He is not a king drunk on power. He is a reluctant general in a war against cosmic oblivion, and history will absolve him of the small cruelties committed in the name of a greater good. But a whisper of an ancient law echoes in the new silence of his heart. To whom much is given, from him much will be required. The weight of that unseen accountability is heavier than any rocket. His memory, once a curated library of triumphs, becomes a traitor. It dredges up moments he had long since archived as collateral damage, the public mockery of a critic celebrated by his followers, the impulsive firing of a loyal engineer over a single disagreement, the promises of a free and open platform later discarded for profit and control. He had always justified these as the necessary, unsentimental decisions of a wartime CEO. But in the afterglow of that holy silence, they are reframed. They are not the actions of a savior. They are the insecure tantrums of a man terrified of being questioned, of losing control for even a second. The fruits of his spirit are laid bare, and they are not love, joy, or peace. The great hypocrisy is now illuminated, burning like a brand on his consciousness. He who speaks of elevating human consciousness has so often trampled on human dignity. He who dreams of building a new civilization on another world has fostered a culture of fear and volatility in his own companies. He is the architect of a future utopia who cannot find peace within the borders of his own skin. The chasm between the grand, benevolent vision he sells to the world and the chaotic, wounded ego that drives him is now a canyon he can no longer ignore. And you? Would you have the courage to look inside if you were facing Jesus? Comment here below. He is left standing in the dust, the master of a global empire, yet a refugee in his own soul. The ironclad certainty that fueled his every action has been replaced by a single, terrifying question. The rocket can still fly, the mission can still proceed, but he knows now that even if he reaches Mars, he cannot escape the man who will step out onto its red soil. The seed of divine truth has been planted in the most fortified ground on earth, the heart of a man who thought he was a god. While the world bows before power, we choose to follow the truth. Subscribe so you don't miss the next confrontation between heaven and earth.